Okay, starting right down here. Give me your name.
Amanda. I'm a cousin.
Dustin.
Maddie, granddaughter.
Joey. Joe or Joey, how you want to remember? Right?
Joey.
Son. I'm the son.
And down there.
I'm Jimmie Mullins' biographer.
Jeff Fields.
And right here we have this young lady down here. Your name and
Diana Nicely.
oh, Diana Nicely. Yes, I know
Erlanger
Diana.
City Council.
Right. Praise the Lord.
I'm Diana's friend.
Well, that's good
Robin
enough.
Johnson.
Nice. And who do we have here?
Got it. Diane Davis Kane.
Fantastic.
I would like to open the meeting in our usual way. We have a moment of silent meditation. There's a lot of things that need prayers in this country right now, in our city. So we're going to have a moment of silent meditation, please. And for my prayer, I always say, please pray for our country. Amen.
Amen.
That we stand, pledge allegiance to the flag.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do you know the president's name?
Diana might, because she's in the society.
Get the right one.
The president's name. I believe it's
Betty Rosman.
Betty Rossman.
Meeting of 6/13/2024. Those in attendance were Joanne Barnett-Smith, Pat Hahn, Paul Hahn, Ed Von Eyck, Marlene Miller, Linda Smith. Somebody named Coke that I didn't get their first name. Sandy Grimmie, Lucy Riffle, Carrie List, Steve List, Missy Andrus, Cindy Loneman, Mezzie Freaking, Lisa Freaking, Julie Schreck, Janet Harrison, Frida Liz List, Rosalind List, Alan List, and Dave List. Our presentation last month was on the list form, so. At 7 p.m., Joanne opened the meeting with a moment of meditation and the pledge of allegiance to the flag. The minutes of the meeting of 5/9/2024 were read by Ed. A motion to approve the minutes was made by Missy, seconded by Lucy. There being no pressing business before the board, it was decided to start the evening's presentation concerning the recent discovery of the old List log house on Garvey Avenue and the List family. A motion was made by Missy to adjourn the meeting, seconded by Pat. At 7:05, Pat started her slide presentation. The presentation was very interesting and informative, and everyone seemed to enjoy it. There was much input from the members of the List family in attendance. They also corrected a few items of misinformation which we had in the program. At 7:45, the program ended, and there was some friendly discourse among the attendees before everyone left. Respectfully submitted by Ed Von Eyck.
Okay, are there any additions or corrections? If not, the minutes stand approved as read. Do we have anything for the treasurer report this?
No, next, my bank statement didn't arrive, so I'll have the second quarter next month's meeting.
Okay. Is there any old business to come before the board? Anybody have anything that you'd like to? No questions? Lovely audience, thank you.
Do you want me to record you?
Yeah,
Under
I
our
just let it
new
run.
business,
And then this takes stills.
we're still
And it's
working
already
on
running. See the whole
old new
thing?
business.
So just let it keep
We are
running.
making progress.
Take a
Slow
few
but
stills
sure.
up.
It takes a lot of research and a lot of verification to make sure that we're getting everything correct. Hopefully it'll all be
Thank you for
correct.
doing that.
And, our August meeting, is our usual usual picnic meeting, and that will be held at the shelter at the Depot Park. And it's our annual picnic, and the Historical Society will provide pizza and water. Of course, you're welcome if you want to bring your supper and share, you know, the camaraderie with us. And that's basically, we don't do anything special other than have our little special meeting, you know, and then just visit. And we would like for you to RSVP, please. Pat, when she sends out the notice next month for the meeting, she'll have the website or the email address on there for you, so we know how many pizzas to order for that day. Let's see. Okay, and then our program for tonight will be presented by Jeff Fields. But before we get into that, Mr. Stevens graciously has volunteered and said he would like to sing My Old Kentucky Home, as he did a few meetings ago for us, and everyone enjoyed it.
This is a lot of body to move around.
Ryan, hand me my glasses. I didn't know where you were going. Thank you. Oh, he's going up there. I thought he was standing in his chair and doing it.
As my wife June would say, now, John, pull your pants up and look smart. Have at it. Bless your hearts, it's so thrilling to be here in Elsmere, Kentucky. You know something, a little secret. The first June that I married, now I'm married to June now, but the first June that I married grew up right down here on Spring Street. She's gone on to heaven now, both her and her husband. We're at peace, you know. But you know something? God gave us a great gift, and I love to sing about my old Kentucky home, because it's a great gift of love. And I always say, are you ready? That is the name of my television show. Are you ready? Are you ready for Jesus? Praise the Lord. He knocks on our doors, but we got to reach down, turn the knob, and invite him into our hearts, just like this lovely president did today by saying the prayer that she did. I admire her so much for that. Oh, the sun shines bright on my old Kentucky home. 'Tis summer, the children at play. The corn top's ripe, and the meadows are in bloom, and the birds make music all the day. Weep no more, my ladies, oh, weep no more today. We will sing one song for my old Kentucky home, for my old Kentucky home, far away. Praise the Lord, red, yellow, brown, black, and white, we're all precious in Jesus' sight. Oh, the children roll on the little cabin floor, all merry, all happy and bright. By and by, hard times comes a knocking at the door, then my old Kentucky home says goodnight. Now join in with me. Weep no more, my ladies. Oh, weep no more today. We will sing one song for my old Kentucky home, for my old Kentucky home, far away. God bless America, God bless Kentucky, and God bless Elsmere and Erlanger. Praise the Lord, praise the ammunition, God and bless. I'm glad to be here with you tonight. At 80 years old, I love you all.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna do a little bio here on Jeff, he sent us. I'm going to read it in his person. I think the first 5 decades of my life living in Erlanger, I spent, and I'm a proud graduate of Lloyd Memorial High School, the class of '82. I then graduated from Kentucky University and later Xavier University with accounting and MBA degrees. I also became a licensed CPA in 1992. I have spent the past 33 years as Assistant Vice President in charge of business development for the Federal Home Loan Bank of Cincinnati. For 7 years, from 2000 to 2007, my family owned and operated the Sports Car Exchange on Stephenson Road. Since then, my spare time has primarily been spent in video production and development. 10 years ago, I produced a short documentary about the bank and was hooked. In recent years, I have shifted from sports productions to history and pop culture videos, starting with the class of '82 Zone. That video and others are on my YouTube channel, The Retro Lens. And I have to introduce you to Mr. Jeff Fields.
That's a hard act to follow. and what's, I don't know, I may not need this, so I'm loud enough as it is probably. What's funny is, I'm gonna sit down here for a minute. What's funny is, one of my mom's favorite songs was My Okie Dokie Mom. So, you singing that tonight, I was sitting here thinking, it's like, well, I've got mom's seal of approval tonight. So, well, thank you for inviting me, and I really appreciate the invitation and a chance to talk to you about a place that I've spent a lot of time at in the last year. And ironically, Joanna talked and said, I really never spent that much time ever at the Rollerdrome growing up or in other places. And in the past year, we've spent a lot of time there. But
1 second, Jeff. Can everybody hear?
You might want to use the mic because a lot of hard of hearing here.
That'll work. Okay.
Can never be too
That's-
loud.
that's-
Nobody's ever
Okay,
told
that'll work.
anyone to be too loud.
So, but I'll get kicked back to, so I'm going to kind of try to keep this, because I know me and microphones have an interesting history together. About a year ago, Joey called me. They were getting ready to have the 75th anniversary of season.
I don't think it's working, Jeff.
Gotta turn it on.
It is on, but I have to have it like right here against my mouth in order to.
Eat it.
The microphone and I are not going to be that popular to each other tonight.
You're good there.
That'll work. So, Joey called me, and they were getting ready to start the 75th season of the Rollerdrome. And he said, you know, I like some of the videos you do and stuff. And he said, would you be interested in putting something together for this? And I said, sure. I said, it sounds like a pretty quick project, something we could do. It wouldn't be something that would be a big problem, and I think we could get something done and something fun. And then we started doing research. And then we started trying to fill in the story and the back of the story and getting to understand. You know, it's a shame that I would love to be able to tell him before, after working as much as I have on this, I would love to have an evening just with his mom and dad so I can say, please tell me what this was and what that was so I can fill in a few of the gaps. But so anyway, what we started doing, once we started doing research, I realized this is a big story and a big piece of history, and there's a lot of history involved. And tonight I'm going to go over some of the pieces of the history and this process that I've been going through for the past year and the research, and it has been an unbelievable puzzle to put together. And I'll explain that in a few minutes here. But it's been an incredible piece to do. So basically what this has turned into from a short video, this is a full-fledged, full-blown documentary now at this point. It's the history, 75 years of history. It's going to be talking about the city in Erlanger Elsmere and how they grew and putting a lot of pieces together. So why don't I go ahead and start going. So basically what we're doing is we're talking about Jimmie's Rollerdrome, how it all began. I promise you we're not going over 75 years of history. We don't have that much time. We do not have that much time tonight. Well, Marie, luckily, was the youngest of 4 children that were born here, that were born in different places, but from Pendleton County and Grant County, but Marie was born in Erlanger. So she was born in 1926. Marie was she was the youngest of 4. She has 3 older brothers, all of whom, I believe all of whom served in the military in World War II, or at least I know a couple of them were served in World War II.
Just one.
Just one, okay, just the oldest one, okay. And Carlita is.
Second one.
Second. Gotcha. So, but anyway, Marie had she had a childhood of the Depression in this area. So I mean, it's obviously you had growing up, wasn't a lot of money. Her mother was ended up becoming a single parent for the family, and they did a lot of work and they worked a lot of jobs and they did a lot of different things in order to be able to make money through the Depression and through World War II. Marie. Marie was obviously, from being in the area, she was a Lloyd High School graduate, which we would always like to have another Lloyd High School graduate. We are a proud group. Marie graduated in 1944, so she graduated right in the middle of World War II. You can see up here from the high school yearbook. Marie was in the different clubs and things. She was on the Tatler, which I thought was fun because I was on the Tatler when I was in high school. So there's little things that kind of I come back in touch with. So, Marie's life before the Rollerdrome was, I wouldn't say a normal life, but it was a normal life of that time period. Now, as far as Jimmie's, there's Lloyd High Schools, and there's the graduating class. Our graduating class in '82 had about 220 people in it, so it would not fit on this size. Ours is very small pictures on it.
Yes.
As for Jimmie's story is a lot more complicated, and in a good way. When we started working on this, Joey gave me a box of papers that his father, it was a travel case that his father, papers that he collected from the World War II and other different things. You read different articles about Jimmie over the years, and his military service was explained differently in different articles. So there wasn't really anything you could get a good handle on from that standpoint. And I told Joey, I said, well, this is a great mystery. I love this. This is, so we knew he was in the Merchant Marines, but as far as, other than that, there wasn't a lot filled in. And he was also, he's a man of his time. So he wasn't one of the people that was going to share a lot of his early life with his kids. He had a pretty hard early life as far as with his family breaking up and different things that they experienced. He was raised on his grandfather's farm. And I know his grandmother passed away, and then his grandfather remarried, so he had a pretty hard time of it in the Depression and on a farm, and it was a working farm in the Depression, so he had a pretty difficult time of it from that standpoint. Then, with Jimmie's history, there was a big gap. So we didn't know we didn't have World War II from 1939 to 1945. We didn't really know what was there, and so when I got this case from Joey, I call this Go West and East and North and South Ending, because basically that's what you're going to find out what happened with Jimmie Mullins. And he was James Mullins in those days too, by the way. He became Jimmie probably about the time he met your mom. He started going by Jimmie because he went by James for everything. But, so like I said, Joey had the case of their father's papers, and it was, you go through this case and it is a scattershot number of, it's an incredible treasure trove of things, but none of them interconnected. None of them fit together in terms of just be able to read and understand exactly what his background was, what the story was. So what we did was started looking through the case and looking to find things in there. As an example, from his case, we had a collection of pictures from the Golden Gate International Exposition in 1939.
Wow.
We also had this is the one that really threw me for a loop, and this is the one that we had to do a lot of research to find out what happened.
Jeff,
Yes.
I think you need to hold the mic a little bit away from your mouth. You're getting a lot of feedback.
But when I do that, you can't hear it.
It might actually be better if you just talk really loud.
Let me try that, because maybe that'll work.
Just try
Yeah.
I will project.
Project.
As Ron Durham would say, I will project. So, The one thing that was very difficult with this one was this Coos Bay rodeo program from July 1939 in Empire, Oregon. Okay, now we're suddenly on the west coast in Empire, Oregon, so and it's 1939. And we understood in 1939 that Jimmie was living on a farm in 1939 in Boone County. So, another mystery, another thing to have to figure out. Another thing from the case. A 1941 Civilian Conservation Corps, his unit certificate from James Mullins. Okay, so we had the date, we had Camp Elkton, we had the company number. So all these little pieces of information or stuff that I knew we were gonna have to do a research on, do a lot of deep dive online at some point with. There's this is the certificate of service for, he was in the stewards, he was registered as a cook from the United States Department of Commerce in March of 1942. So we're starting to get, like I said, we're starting to get all these different pieces of things and not knowing how they all fit together. There's envelopes in there. This is a scatter shot of all kinds of things. There's envelopes with different addresses in Oregon, in Empire, Oregon, Portland, Oregon. And there was a address for the U.S. Dredge Pacific. And I will say, if anyone else in this room right now knows what a Dredge Pacific was, I've heard Dredge Pacific and I had no idea what this was. I had no clue what this was. So another mystery. And like I said, another thing in his case, his selective service information was in there. So it was in Portland, Oregon. He was registered for the selective service in Portland, Oregon. It was just like, well, why was he in Portland, Oregon, registered for the service when he was from Northern Kentucky and he was in Northern Kentucky? Like I said, a lot of different things. Pay slips from the Kaiser Company in Portland, Oregon, in the late part of 1942. And I will explain how all these things fit together, I promise you. So, another thing, discharge documents for 3 different ships, merchant marine ships, from 1943 to 1945. Okay, so lots of pieces, lots of information, none of it fitting all together, but lots of clues to work with and to do. So this is a giant puzzle, and I was immediately in love with this thing. This box was a giant puzzle, and I was like, we've got to solve this thing. Joey knows we asked a lot of questions, did a lot of research and different things with it. So one of the things I did research-wise was to go through a lot of newspapers digitally. So I went through the Boone County Recorder in the 1939 Boone County Recorder, and there were different sales pieces for Jimmie Mullins, for James Mullins, selling livestock. So this is from the farm. Then you get to May of 1939, and there is a post, and I will say this, if you've never read the Boone County Recorder from the 20s and 30s, you should treat yourself to one evening just taking an hour and reading some of those old papers, because what passes for news is very interesting. But they said that Frank Mullins, who was Jimmie Mullins' grandfather, Frank Mullins received a letter from Albert Mullins, who was Jimmie's older brother, the first child, saying he's stationed in Massillon, Ohio. He's now working at the World's Fair. Okay, well, World's Fair in 1939, the first thing that goes through your brain from a historical standpoint is New York. Okay, so you think New York World's Fair. But there were 2 World's Fairs in 1939, and one was on the West Coast in San Francisco. Remember the San Francisco piece before we saw the pictures? That was called a World's Fair, but it was really, that wasn't the name of it, but it was being referred to by everybody as a World's Fair. So you could have a World's Fair in New York, World's Fair in San Francisco, and basically a lot of people were going back and forth doing a round trip to go to both. And there were 2 very different World's Fairs, for your research-wise. The San Francisco one is very different. And then we get to, go back. August 1939, there is a notice in the paper from Frank Mullins, who was Jimmie's grandfather. To whom it may concern, I wish to make public the fact that I will no longer be responsible for any debts contracted for by James Mullins. Signed, Frank Mullins.
What did he
That
do?
doesn't really scream that I'm loving what you're doing right now. So basically his grandfather, basically, as they did in the day, posted a notice that he wasn't going to be responsible for anything financially from it. Another thing that I did a lot of research on, I spent a lot of time on Ancestry.com, going through different family members, different names, looking at different things, finding a lot of different information. I did a lot of James Mullins name research, and then I came across one for the 1940 census of a James Mullins living in Knoxville, Tennessee. And what was the part that threw me for a loop his previous residence was Boone County, Kentucky.
I'll be darned.
So I'm not only puzzle pieces from this box, I'm researching puzzle pieces too. So I'm making a big giant quilt of puzzle pieces. So basically, what I was able to figure out was at some point Jimmie Mullins was in the Civilian Conservation Corps. He was in the Merchant Marines. He worked at the Kaiser shipyards. And he also was on something called the Dredge Pacific. And I love that name. That name will stick with me for the rest of my life, the Dredge Pacific. Okay, so once I knew those things and then started doing some research, I knew that for the Civilian Conservation Corps, there were records. The St. Louis National Archives keeps those records. So I went to them and I reached out to them and made an information request. I had information. The blessing was because I had some documents in this box of Jimmie's, I was able to actually give them some information that they could use to do research. I had his unit number and some other things. That made things a lot easier. So I made an information request. As you can see, I've got a copy up there, one page of the, I think it's 26 pages of his records that they found. Then I reached out to the Coast Guard and asked for his Merchant Marine records, because that's actually when the Merchant Marines at the end of World War II were incorporated into the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard took over responsibility. So I reached out to that. And you can see that's one of the first pictures we have with the little tiny thin mustache over James. So James Mullins now has a mustache and fingerprints there for us to. We will not be using the fingerprints for anything in this evening.
And every finger, it looks like.
And then the Merchant Marine ship log records. I reached out to the San Francisco National Archives. They had the actual ship logs because I wanted to be able to see, okay, he was the Merchant Marines, I know what ships he was on, so I was able to tell him all that. I wanted to know where he went. I wanted to be able to document where he went during the war, because he sailed on 3 different ships during the war. Okay, all of that together, now here's what we've been able to piece together as the story of Jimmie Mullins from 1939 to 1945. Jimmie and his brother Leroy ran away for an adventure on the West Coast. Jimmie wanted to go visit their brother Albert, who was working at the World's Fair in San Francisco. Albert was getting ready to go into the Army. They thought it would be the last chance for them to all have a good adventure together. So Jimmie and Leroy took trains, and we don't know if it was taken or hitchhiking trains, but they took trains and hitchhiking and made their way out to San Francisco. While they were in San Francisco, remember we were back a couple minutes ago where I showed you the Oregon rodeo. That's where while they were out there, they happened to go up to the port to Empire, Oregon to go to the rodeo. So Jimmie's getting a good taste in life on the West Coast and really enjoying life on the West Coast. So then when he comes back from the World's Fair, well, Grandpa's disowned him at this point. So instead of coming back to Boone County, he goes to live in Knoxville. And while he was in Knoxville, he lived in Knoxville from the fall of 1939 to July of 1940. When he moved to Knoxville, he worked various jobs. He was remember this because this will come back again in a little bit. He was a soda jerk at a fountain drugstore. And he also was an installer of furnaces and did welding. So that's where he first gained some experience with welding, which will come back to him later on. Okay. Then July 1940, Jimmie Mullins was accepted into the Civilian Conservation Corps. He applied and he was sent to Camp Elkton in Oregon. So he managed to find a way to make his way back out to the West Coast. And he was able to get the job with the Civilian Conservation Corps. Say that 3 times fast. So he spent a lot of time on the West Coast, specifically in Oregon, from 1940 to 1945. First place being Camp Elkton. I'm sure most people in here know at least something about the Civilian Conservation Corps, but it was a New Deal program that President Roosevelt passed. It was it was to be involved with conservation and working on national parks and forestry and land preservation. It was also, but primarily, it was to be able to employ young people from the age of 18 to 24 whose families were poor, whose families needed money, who were able to find jobs, and this was a way for them to be employed. They were able to make $30 a month, $22 of which went back to their family. So they had to designate that $22 of their pay every month went back to their parents, and they got to keep $8. And $8 doesn't sound like a lot, but they had room and board covered, and $8 in that day would at least give them something on the weekends so they can have some fun. Camp Elkton where it's located in Oregon, the main thing that they worked on there was forestry management, and also they built roads and parks and campgrounds in the area. So not only did he have a chance to go up here, but he also gained a lot of skills which would come into play later on when it comes time to build the Rollerdrome. Very skinny Jimmie Mullins, the cook, was there from August 1940 to August 1941. They said that his outstanding accomplishments were that he was a good cook and he was a good ball pitcher. So Joey, we were able to find out, confirm with Joey and Bobby, we talked about it, it's like, your dad actually was pitching baseball for the CCC. He served as the first cook, so basically he was good enough and he was skilled enough, experienced enough that he was served as the first cook. So he was basically the head of the kitchen for the last 3 months while he was at the camp. You know, they also, like I said, he had training in cooking and baking and mess management and administration. He was actually appointed an assistant leader and then moved up to a leader position for his unit. They say he's hardworking and ambitious. These are words that come back to play because this is a good description I think you can come up with Jimmie Mullins when you know his life. Hard worker and ambitious, dependable, worthy, and persevering. And a good basketball pitcher, so that worked out good too. So, well, Jimmie left Camp Elkton in order to get another job. He found a job in August of 1941 with the Army Corps of Engineers on the Dredge Pacific. And one of the good things is I've learned a lot of things that I never knew before. One of which is what a dredge is, and the dredge is a ship. The Pacific is the name of the ship. It was operated by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in Coos Bay, Oregon, which is down the coast. It's a coastal bay. It's important for a riverway. What the dredge did was that they cleared away sand silt underwater in order for the ships to be able to move more efficiently, to be able to move through the water and not get stuck on the sand silt. So that was their job. So he was assigned there in Coos Bay, Oregon, and then in San Francisco, they moved down to San Francisco during the winter when it was cold. So they moved down there. He worked as a waiter and a cook on the ship. So once again, his training through the CCC was able to give him a job in the Army Corps of Engineers. He was there until late summer of 1942. He would leave that job to go to work for the Kaiser shipyards in Portland. He worked as a burner, which is basically a welder and a metal shaper, from summer of 1942 to January of 1943. At Kaiser, they were building what they called the victory ships. What happened with World War II was, when the onset of World War II, the merchant marines for the United States had become run down in terms of the ships. They were old ships. They didn't have what they needed. They were having to deal with the Germans blocking the Atlantic and also what was going on in the Pacific. So they basically needed a ton of ships. So Kaiser took on the job. They started building these victory ships. The specialty of the ship was they were welded together rather than bolted together. So these ships were also not the strongest of vehicles to be in the middle of a war, or in cold water where they tended to sometimes fall apart. So it was a dangerous undertaking to begin with. So Jimmie's helping to build the victory ships that are going to be used by the merchant marines. One of the ships that was worked on the shipyard is the very first ship that Jimmie went out on in the merchant marines. So he left that job in January 1943. He went out to work. He went to work for the merchant marines. He enlisted in the merchant marines. And while he was there, he sailed on 3 different ships. He sailed on the Juan de Fuca from January 1943 to August of 1943. Then he would sail on the William Ladd from September 1943 to July of 1944. And then finally he was on the William Keith, which was from September 1944 to July of 1945, so just before the end of World War II. On the Juan de Fuca was actually assigned to duty in North Africa. So he was in 1943. North Africa was the end of the North African campaign. And so what the merchant marines were responsible for doing was transporting cargo, cargo, troops, and fuel to the military forces. So they would bring it to the Marines, they would bring it to the Army, they would bring them to the Navy as well. So they were responsible for this. So basically, they were small ships. They weren't incredibly well built. They were built fast. So there was a lot of danger in just being on these ships. So for this first voyage, like I said, they were in North Africa and the Suez Canal. They made their way back to New York City by way of Cape of Good Horn and up the whole coast of South America and Central America. This is a picture of Jimmie, arrow pointing, below the Sphinx in Egypt. Some of the camels don't look as pleased as the men sitting on top of the camels, for that matter. Probably one of the good times that he had in the Merchant Marines, because his next two voyages were not into places where the war was drawing to a close. His next two journeys with the William Ladd and the William Keith were both into the Pacific theater. So he was at this point he now is in the Pacific Islands, in the Pacific War. And this is in end of 1943 through mid-1945. So he was there they were there sailing to different places, Papua New Guinea, Australia, Pacific Islands, whose names I won't even be able to try to remember or pronounce at this point, but I learned a lot about Pacific Islands that I thought I always knew, but I learned a lot of things that we didn't learn in class at Lloyd. We didn't spend a lot of time on Pacific Islands in Mr. Barnes' class.
No, we didn't.
So, but basically they were sailing, so they were basically carrying fuel and cargo during the liberation of the Philippines, battle for Iwo Jima, and also for Okinawa. Jimmie was very, like I said, Jimmie was, during the war, was very, in a lot of danger. He was promoted finally up to he was the head of the ship. He was the head of the ship, the head of the kitchen, head of the ship. So Jimmie had a lot of experience with and he was able to use his CCC experience to help him through Merchant Marines. Okay. One of the things about the Merchant Marines, and I'm not sure how much everyone knows about the Merchant Marines, but one of the things the Merchant Marines were never considered to be part of the military service. They were not treated as part of the military service. There was a lot of political reasons, there was a lot of other reasons, there's a big history with it. In the documentary, I'm going to go into a lot more detail on that. But one of the things that happened was, when they came out of the Merchant Marines at the end of World War II, they were denied the GI Bill. They were not allowed to be classified and treated as military veterans. And the one really awful surprise that started popping up for them was that Selective Service started sending them notices and said, well, now that you've served in the war for 2.5 years in war zones, we're going to draft you into another element of the military service, because we don't consider that to be military service. So there's a long history of this. We'll deal, and I'm going to talk about this much more in the documentary, but one of the things I want to point out with this is 1988 is the year that Jimmie Mullins died. 2 months before Jimmie Mullins died, a bill was finally passed recognizing the service of the Merchant Marines in World War II as actually military service and actually military veterans. And this letter that you can see up here is a letter from Harry Truman. Harry Truman, this is a letter that was given to the Merchant Marines after these bills were passed and after the laws were changed. As a part of me going through, and I'm not taking credit for it, but I'm very pleased that I was able to get this ball rolling. But as part of going back to the Coast Guard and asking them to review Jimmie's record and asking him to get the record, they went through and reviewed everything and realized he hadn't gotten any of the awards that he should have gotten in the past 30 years or 40 years that they were given. So we were able to get he was issued an honorable discharge through the United States Coast Guard. His original discharges were from the Merchant Marines, but he was discharged from the United States Coast Guard. They also provided other medals, and the Victory Medal was for World War II, the Merchant Marine Service Emblem, the Honorable Service Button, and then the Merchant Marine Congressional Medal. So all of these things were awarded to Jimmie. I have them all here tonight. And at the end of the presentation, I'm going to have the Mullins family come up, and we're actually going to give a chance to present them to them. So I'm looking very much forward to that. But while he was on the West Coast, and unfortunately we haven't been able to find pictures to document this at this point yet. But while he was on the West Coast, Jimmie ended up falling in love with roller skating. He was exposed to it out there. He ended up doing team racing and speed racing while he was there, and fell in love with it. And developed the idea that, when I get out of the war, I'd like to come home and start my own roller rink. So he saved all his money, dangerous battle pay saved all his money from the Merchant Marines and from other things. So when he comes back to Northern Kentucky, comes home from the war. 1945, he meets Marie Buckley, who's working as I'm not going to call her a soda jerk, who's working as a soda clerk. She was working as a soda clerk at Sid's drugstore, at Elsmere Drugs, the original Elsmere Drugs. So I think, I love the serendipity of these two people that really were meant to be together. They both had the same job, and they both had done the soda jerk job. So it's like a couple of soda jerks got together. So they had that at least to talk about when they met, and a lot of other things. So, you know, Jimmie had been dating someone else when he met Marie, but it was not necessarily the most serious relationship. And Marie really fell for Jimmie, according to the family legend. So her mom told her, said, well, he's not married yet, so if you really find him that lovable, I think you need to let him know that. So she did, and he found her quite lovable, and start off from there. I love this picture. And then this picture's edited down because her mother is standing, this is over on Maple Street, their house on Maple Street, and her mother's standing about 10 feet back with her arms like, mission is accomplished. So Marie talks to Jimmie about his dream. Jimmie says, I don't know where I want to do this. Marie says, well, you know, I live in Elsmere. Why don't you put the rink in Elsmere? This would be a neat place to have a rink. And, you know, and we're going to name it Jimmie's Rink, but I don't like Jimmie, J-I-M-M-Y. I think I'd like J-I-M-M-I-E better for Jimmie. So it was Marie's idea to spell it with the I-E. Okay, so 1946, he buys the property. And you can see the empty lot right there, and you can't really read it very well, but there's a little sign there that says Jimmie's Rollerdrome. So in 1946, the Elsmere City Council approves the building of the rink as long as it's going to be soundproofed.
Oh my gosh.
Well, so that means you're going to build it with concrete blocks. If you go and look at it now, it's built with concrete blocks, so that would be the soundproof one. And this is a great idea, and Jimmie got started, and then Jimmie ran afoul of the Civilian Production Administration. After the war, there were limited resources. Steel shortages, there was electricity shortages, there were a lot of coal shortages, there was a lot of shortages. The government decided that the priority needed to be housing, building of housing, because there was such a housing shortage in the United States. So non-residential building was prohibited unless you got a special permit for that. Everything was by order of the Civilian Production Administration. Well, Jimmie hadn't gotten that particular permit because he hadn't applied for it yet. He just started working. He just started working on the place. And he got a cease and desist from the Civilian Production Administration saying, you know, you need to come back and ask us for this. So Jimmie came back and asked them for that, and they gave him approval to build a roof over the partially started rink so that it wouldn't be destroyed because of the weather. We're getting to the end. Now it's winter of 46. So Jimmie builds a roof, but he builds a roof with wooden, if you go and see, it's wooden trusses. If you go to the rink now, you see it's wooden trusses because there was a steel shortage, so that's why he used wooden trusses. So, you know, the rink, you know, it has so much history in it, and the whole thing, like, that's one of the things I love about it, is there's so much history there, you just have to look one corner and another corner, and there's history everywhere. Okay, well, 1946 ended off with the rink kind of being stalled out, but 1947 was a good year. Jimmie and Marie got married, and baby number one, Jimmie Ray, came along in December. I love that picture. That's a neat picture. So, 1947, 1948, the rink is built. Opening night, December 31st, 1948. Culmination of 2 years of hard work. You can see the original rink design. You can see how it looked. It was not the most fascinating building from the outside of the original design. And there's the first ticket that was sold, and that's Marie's handwriting. First ticket, December 31st, New Year's Eve, our opening night. Well, Jimmie finds his footing in the community. So, starting off at the end of 48, it starts being found that people are coming there and having some success. You know, becoming a place where kids want to come. It's become a place where everybody knows to come, and the community's starting to really find it and take it into its heart. Doing well enough that in 1950, Jimmie and Marie bought 65 acres of farmland that belonged to the Nieberger, how do you say, Nieberger? Yes. The Nieberger family. Betty was the one that helped put me onto that, so kudos to Betty for helping me figure that out. And the dimensions, we may be having to tweak that a little bit. We're still working on that. But they bought the farm. This is the farm over off Stephenson Road near Turkeyfoot, before you reach Turkeyfoot Road. We will come back to this shortly. Well, Jimmie Mullins had a farm. Jimmie Mullins had specifically a hog farm. Jimmie Mullins You know, he had grown up on a hog, he'd grown up on a farm. It was still true, near and true to his heart. His entire life he did farming in one way or another. So, the next year after the hog farm starts, he decided for Easter they were going to have a catcher's keeper's grease pig contest. They did it one time. They didn't do it again because it did so much damage to the floor and dirtying up the floor that Marie said, and there's an interview, Marie said, we were never doing that again. We were cleaning for days. So this little guy did a lot more damage than they could have believed. So that idea didn't work out as well, but as the business was growing and doing well, so did the Mullins family. Altogether, you have 6 wonderful Mullins children. Jimmie Ray, Darlene, Carlita, Kathy, Bobby, and the guy sitting over there. So, and in 1953, the rink was closed for 6 months when they did remodeling. They expanded it, they rebuilt it, they expanded it. They added the apartment home above it. So now they actually were, not only was it their place, now it was their homes. This is the place on Main Street. And one of the first guests they had after they had a new home and a new building was a little fellow called Jimmie the roller skating horse. He was no relation. He was on television. He was very well known on television, which doesn't necessarily speak highly for what was on television in 1954, but it was a new medium, so we'll go with that. But if your name was Mullins, you were skating. You were wearing skates as soon as you learned to walk. And Joey has told me about how his dad teaches little ones, always taught little ones how to skate. So I'm not surprised that his children all knew how to skate. Date night at the Rollerdrome. There was a lot of folks that were too young to date, and mom and dad said they couldn't date in the 50s, but you know, if we really like that Rollerdrome, if you can go there and you can go with your friends and spend the night, and oh, by the way, mom and dad, we're just going with the girls, and the fact that there were some boys there, so there was a couples only song that I'm sure that was very popular at the time. And one of the interviews and one of the people that I went to high school with, Kathy Cassini, her mom and dad actually met at the rink. So, so they've got a great interview with them that's going to be in the documentary. So occasionally, and you see this some that people said that they met their spouse at the Rollerdrome. You see on Facebook a few times too. We've seen people say, "I met my first wife at the Rollerdrome," or "I met all of my husbands at the Rollerdrome." Just meeting them at the skating didn't necessarily guarantee that the marriage was going to last. So in 1953, at the end of 1953, Jimmie Mullins took on another challenge. Became a member of Elsmere City Council. He was elected to the Elsmere City Council on the citizens ticket. He was J.E. Jimmie Mullins. And this was a very important time to be voted into the city council, because the 1954 and 1955 was water shortages. Northern Kentucky was dealing with water shortages, and I'm not telling anyone who's in the historical society something they don't know. But it was interesting to me to learn this as I've been doing the research on this. I didn't realize, that there would be a problem because Northern Kentucky was growing, and they didn't have the water infrastructure to get the water to the cities and to the towns that they needed for the growth. So Elsmere, of course, was one of the cities that was trying to deal with this. And Jimmie was among the group. He was kind of a bad boy on the city council at the time because he was one of the 3 that wanted Elsmere to actually develop their own water system. They had to bring water from Boone County, from the wells in Boone County, and they had their own water system, which they obviously ultimately did not do. So Jimmie would serve about those 2 years, and then he would be reelected again. So Jimmie ultimately was on the city council from 1962 to 1965, and he was the leading vote getter at the end of 1961 when we had the election. So Jimmie was considered to be, we had an interview a couple weeks ago with one of the family members, and they said that he was known in the family as the man with the Midas touch. When he got involved with the business, that it did well. That Jimmie had a golden touch on the business that he got involved with. And he was smart setting up in Erlanger and Elsmere, but Erlanger and Elsmere at the time, because when you look at the history and how everything evolved, with the post-war housing shortage, Covington there was no housing to be found in Covington, so they started looking south of Covington for new development. The Green Line bus system began servicing Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, and they it routes to Erlanger Elsmere, and right over here in Garvey, and all the way out to Florence. There was also teenagers with cars. That was a big thing at the time in the 50s. Everybody was starting to buy a car. So you had the ability to get out there, to get to the Rink. You had a new interstate. The federal interstate was being built. And the interstate connection from north to south, from Cincinnati to Florence, is what started triggering a whole development boom in northern Kentucky. New subdivisions would replace the farmland and the open areas in Erlanger and Elsmere. So you had places like Timber Heights. I told my brother when I first did this research, which is Timber Heights is basically the end of Timberlake next to down towards Rainbow. But it was at the time, everything in the 50s had to be classified as a subdivision. Everything was a subdivision. You wanted to live in a subdivision. It was suburbia, you wanted a subdivision. So I asked my brother, I said, did you realize, I didn't know until we read this that we actually grew up on Timber Heights. I thought it was just Timberlake. We actually grew up in the Timber Heights subdivision.
Jeffrey, what you might not know is O.B. Phelps built the houses coming down to your parents'
Yeah,
house,
and our- yeah.
my parents' house. The house after that is the beginning of the Drees building. That's when they first
That's right, you're
started
right,
building.
you're right.
And their first homes were that end of that street going down. In fact, I still live on that street,
Yeah.
4 doors down
Yeah.
from where I live, and I live in the original Ralph Drees home.
This lady was almost the cause of a real scare for my mom when my mom was pregnant with me. Then my parents moved into our house on Halloween of 1964, and I was born in December. And my mom laid down for a nap. She was 7 months pregnant at the time. She laid down for a nap, and when she got up from the nap, she happened to look out the window, and the tree next to us was filled with stuffed animals and all kinds of things. That the lady over there, the lady with the glasses and the white shirt, was responsible for. But yeah, so like I was saying, all of the subdivisions that started building up in Erlanger and Elsmere through the 50s and the 60s. Summit Hills. There's so many things. Cherry Hills. There's Erlanger New Homes and Cherry. You don't have to go chauffeuring to school in Cherry Hill. There's probably a lot of people driven to school from Cherry Hill. I don't know if that's actually true.
A lot of walking.
Exactly. So, but I thought, and I had not looked at this specifically before until I was doing this the other day, and I think this is fascinating. In 1940, we'll talk about Erlanger for a second, but in 1940, Erlanger's population was 2,416 people. By 1970, it's gone to 12,676. So it increased by 5 times. And that was, like I said, that was with the interstate, the Brent Spence Bridge, and all the subdivision and building things. Our house, we were just talking about our house on Timberlake, the backyards behind us, my dad bought the yards behind us because they were timber, or not timber, but they were trees and an open storm drain. And they bought that and cleared it and filled it in and did things with it. So I mean, I think back, I can still remember that barely. So a lot of this stuff kind of brings back a lot of memories. Well, Jimmie and Marie, once Erlanger and Elsmere started annexing the areas that were not already part of the city in the 60s, they decided to actually start selling the property over there on Stephenson Road. So once they sold it to Joseph Stetter, and it actually ended up becoming what's now known as Lexington Estates.
Yep.
So, once again, Jimmie made a smart investment in terms of what turned around and be able to sell it for. And they ended up buying, after they sold this, they ended up buying a farm in Rapidash, which we won't talk about that tonight, but that's all part of the documentary. So by the 60s, Jimmie's was the place in northern Kentucky for birthday parties and club events. So you start to see this change in clothing styles and different things as well, which is, we're into the 60s at this point. Jimmie's made its way onto the national map in 1964 because in Cincinnati they held the Universal Roller Skating Sticker Association had their first meeting in Cincinnati. And so Jimmie's was one of the places that you basically had to go to all the different rinks in the area and get the sticker for that rink. So Jimmie's was one of the places that you could get a roller skating, a barrel o' fun. These are different types of pieces. I did think it was a little unfortunate though that Jimmie's is Kentucky's friendliest rink. I think it's friendliest.
Oh my
It's supposed to be friendliest rink. And it's friendliest, so.
I like the address of the Willow and Maine.
The Willow and Maine.
Yeah,
I like
middle sticker at the top. Yeah.
Yeah.
Willow and Maine.
Willow and Maine, yeah.
Erlanger.
Erlanger.
Well, considering that these are being printed in Chicago, they weren't really concerned about it. The Chicago Skate Company supplied a lot of these things. Okay, trick or treat. Halloween was always a big event at Jimmie's. You see a lot of from the 60s, you see witches and goblins, and the police officer at the top corner there that I don't think he worked for Elsmere Erlanger, either one. So, and then at the bottom there you have Jimmie and Marie. We were trying to figure out what Marie is supposed to be. I think she's supposed to be a fortune teller. I think that's what she's supposed to be. Jimmie's wearing a witch's hat that he got from another girl that was there the night. Then those lucky Mullins kids, we talked about this, I said, how cool is it to be the kid whose family has a roller skating rink in their basement? So from talking with the story, I said, but they didn't end up, like when the kids were down there, they didn't necessarily want to be roller skating, they would be playing wiffle ball or anything that they could find a way that mom would keep quiet from dad. They would tell dad that. And so these kids were such good skaters that they naturally, and because Jimmie had experience with it, they started toward the end of the 60s, they started to lead a competitive team at regional and national competitions. So they were actually speed skating. Bobby, I think, in fact, was a 4th place nationally.
Yeah, but found out it ended up being 5th. We always thought it was 4th until we found the magazine and the letter. And
there are some disadvantages to history.
That's one of Dad's interviews that
Right.
stated in the paper that he got 5th too, so that matches up with what the magazine.
There's some disadvantages to finding some family history sometimes too.
Wrong, we thought.
Well,
But he was in 2nd, and the person that first fell and knocked out on the last lap, took out the next 4.
Yeah,
So
Bobby-
he had a good chance to win, but he got up and finished 5th.
And when Bobby told us, he said, Dad told me Dad's first reaction to me was, well, I said, you'd have won if you'd stayed on your skate. So he was definitely a competitive skater. And you can see some of the teams from the regional competition pictures. Several of the participants are here with us tonight.
That's awesome.
Great pictures. We've still got a long way to go, but this has been I've told somebody, I said, one of the things that has been interesting to me was that I felt like I've really reconnected with Erlanger Elsmere, because I moved to Union about 8 years ago after my parents had both passed away. And so I was reliving a lot of things. It was, revisiting things that you love and places that you love and things, and getting to know this family much better. And I already knew them well, but getting to know them much better than getting to know you, getting to know all about you. That's pretty true. And then, if you go to the rink, you can see so many different trophies and medals and awards that they won from their competitions over the years. Wow. It is an impressive number of trophies. So the documentary I'm working on is called King and Queen of Main Street. I thought that was the title just kind of, we were trying to think of the title, said, they created a home for themselves and their family, and a home for a lot of kids and a lot of teenagers, a lot of families, and a lot of generations of people, several generations of folks have grown up at that place. So the documentary is still in progress. I would love if anyone has any pictures or wants to share any memories or wants to even be interviewed, whatever, I would be more than happy to make time with you and work with you on that. And what I would like to do now.
When did they die?
Jimmie died in March of 1988.
And Mom died July 7th of 2020.
Oh, so very recently.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah, and that's one of the things with the documentary is I've had people say to me, don't forget Marie. I said, there's no way you can forget Marie. But Jimmie's the adventurer. Jimmie's the one that had the adventures out of the world and different things. And Marie was the anchor. Marie was the family. Marie was the heart of the family. So, and she carried on the dream well after Jimmie had passed away. So, and with her family and then the kids have all taken on, the grandkids, and it's a great story. It's a fantastic story, and I love the story very much.
I have just one thing to add. Don't forget in the documentary to add when Marie was inducted into Lloyd's Hall of Fame.
Absolutely.
A couple years before she
Gotta
passed
get up
away.
there so I can get pictures.
Well, you all have some
we
too, and I
still
have
have
some. My granddaughter and I are hugging her, so I'll send that to
Oh, I
you
want
too.
that. Yeah, I definitely want that. So, but like I said, I would love to have any assistance anybody wants to get with this. If nobody has any other questions, I want to do something very special right now. I'd like to have the Mullins family come up here, please. I'm gonna make a guess that this might be the first time this has happened in a Erlanger Elsmere Historical Society. But These are the medals that Jimmie has been awarded. And this is I'll take this one out. This is the Congressional Gold Medal. And I want to tell you, when these came to the house, when these were delivered to the house, when I opened the package and felt this Congressional Medal, it just goes through you. You realize the history and the U.S. history. It really it hit me very hard. And I'm glad to say that it hit me very hard when I saw that. The also is in here is the letter from. This is a letter from Harry. This is a copy of the letter from Harry Truman. And I'm very happy to be able to present this. Thank you. I'll leave these out for the.
That's fine, you guys all go. I wanna thank you for everything you've done, I know it's, great thing that you've done. I'm proud, of a lot of work.
My one real strong regret is that I have never had a chance to talk to your mom.
Yeah.
Because after learning as much of them as I have, it's like, I'd love to just get to know them, but I have about 100 questions you need to know.
Yep, so.
But we will let everybody know when the documentary's done. And but like I said, if anybody wants to help with it, and anything they want to help with, I would be more than happy to have the assistance. Watching my artificial shoulder.
Thank you.
Are you just gonna show the documentary on your YouTube channel, Jeff, or are you gonna try to hook it up with
I'm going to see
something?
what interest there is after it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it temporarily.
I didn't know
would probably-
if KET would pick something up like that. or-
KET's who I was thinking of. That's exactly what I was thinking of, KET.
And I know the, roller skating.
I mean, secretly, I would love Netflix, but I think KET's probably a better option.
Yes.
You want to see that's I will say this, that I told Joe, I said, when we started this, I didn't think I would be filing 3 Freedom of Information Acts with the federal government for this project. We'll go quick. That picture of you and my pride, that picture of you shows us, I don't want to be here.
Are all your siblings still in town, Joe? Or
Bobby lives in Sarasota. And then Kathy was gonna be here tonight, but I know she went to the Reds game today, so I don't know what happened.
Fantastic.
Darlene must have lived with her.
And I live in Erlanger.
Yes.
So everybody's around, but Bobby's down south.
Yeah, and Jim Ray died when I was younger.
I was gonna say, I don't remember him.
Yeah.
When did he
I
pass?
I was in 4th grade.
73, January 75.
He was young then.
It was after he came back from Vietnam.
Oh, wow.
And we are going to keep talking about his Vietnam and Vietnam days, because he was in the Signal Corps, which is really a strong thing to be in, actually, communications.
Yeah, I don't remember him at
Which
all.
is ironic, because his communication skills, he probably picked up starting at the Rink when he was doing the DJing and sending up tapes. He knew what he was doing.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah, he was in Cambodia too.
And I will thank you, Mullins family, for the memories. I grew up there.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And all of my brothers, sisters, and grandkids, and even great-grandkids are continuing to work at some capacity. They do
Somebody just asked me if you were
And,
still.
and the good part is the documentary will be covering all that kind of stuff, which that's why I said, this is 75 years of history we're going to possibly do tonight, but I wanted to give you a flavor for why this is so important.
What's your schedule for being open?
It's, so yeah, it's the weekend after Labor Day to Memorial Day. Dad always did that because he did the opposite of swimming pools. Now, when the farm was in Elsmere, he would open during the year, but when it went to Rabbit Hash, that's when he decided he closed during the summer. So like very early 70s,
But you have special parties or?
Yeah, Wednesday night, 6 to 8:30, and then Friday, Saturday nights, and Saturday, Sunday afternoons. All the others available like for private parties.
Just not during the summer, trust me, you don't wanna be in there, it's really hot.
Yeah, during the summer, right now, we're not open, but that's one reason, because of the heat and stuff like that.
It's,
Yeah.
When we did competitive skating, we had to do it in the summer when the pros come in to teach us, it was hot.
Yeah, it's hot then, so,
I knew a few that were on your competitive teams.
yeah, so.
Were you a competitive skater, Joe?
Yeah, we all were, four of us were, me, Bobby, Kathy, Carlita, so.
You go back and look at those pictures, he's the one that's like, I'm gonna do something. There's a lot, there's a running theme with the Joey pictures, it's like, I'm about to do something.
My career ended at 12 because Bobby was 16 and he got into football and more, and everybody else quit, and I was by myself, so that's why I ended up stopping, so. That's been good.
Are you a better skater or a softball player?
Softball.
I'm a softball player.
you should've said golfer.
Yeah.
But when they played ball, we all had to go out in the field, even my sister and I. Dad would make us catch flies.
That's what I thought was so fun about finding out he was in-
If we were afraid of
Yeah.
the ball, he'd say, that's what the gloves for.
Well,
put it
Jeff
in front
actually
of
found
us."
out he was baseball because Dad wasn't one who always bragged about himself.
No, he
He
didn't
never
talk
did.
about it.
So I told Bobby, I called him as soon as I found out. I said, Bobby, you remember Dad used to teach us how to throw a curve? He used to show us, but we didn't think of it. We just figured he just
With
threw
the
it.
fingers.
But now it all makes sense. So that's why he.
The only thing we're not wanting to find out anything about, he spent some time in Papua New Guinea, it's like with the cannibals around there, it's like, we don't want to find out that he was, any cooking tips from them. Virgin Marines, how they fed the family and people away from all that
They
stuff.
were actually on one island where the guys come back and said they get some really good chicken.
Oh
And
my
he
gosh.
said, have you seen a chicken since you've been on?
Yeah.
He said, you see a lot of cats. That's
Yeah.
probably what you ate.
Oh my goodness.
When I started going through the list of one of the things that's not, we didn't show tonight, but one of the things that was in this box was his little black book.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things he did in the black book was to write down the names of all the ports. He wrote down the ports, so that was a help to me a little bit first.
Oh, wow.
But so many of them, but the problem was they were not printed necessarily, so it was a little hard to read things, and I'm thinking, well, he got this all wrong, and then I started reading through the merchant log and like, no, it's just a place whose name you can't imagine or possibly. So it's been a fascinating project. It really
I
is.
can't wait for the documentary, I know.
I can't either, so. Well, thank you all very much for the invitation.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Mullins family.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
second,
Second. Okay, thank you. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Nice seeing you.
Oh, nice to see you too. God bless you. Yeah, so tickled to see you.
I tell you what, you sang still beautiful.
Well, thank you. Thank you very
That
much.
hasn't changed at all.
Thank you. That's video.
Okay.
And just leave it run, but go over, if you would, for me, and take some close-ups of the medals.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Here, watch out.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
God bless you. I'd like to remind you of the next meeting here of the Elsmere and Erlanger Historical Society. That they're going to have. Oh, so nice to.
I guess we're going on Dixie Highway, right?
Yeah, there we go.
Now, folks, one of the great things about city government is that you have city council people, and believe me, I've watched them over the years. I'm 80 years old. This is two of the best. They work hard, they're considerate about their works, and they really care about their cities. Now, I want you to tell me your name, full name, and you're with Elsmere.
Joanne Barnett Smith with the City of Elsmere.
And how long have you been there?
Oh, 10 years.
10 years, and you are?
Diana Nicely with the City of Erlanger, 4 years.
4 years. And will you pass a word to the mayors of both your cities? Tell them that John Stephenson loves them and to keep up the good work. I'm very proud of them. And they did a beautiful job on the land I donated down there to them called the 7 Mile Garden. And they did a wonderful job out there. And I filmed it the other day, talked all about it. And I'm really thrilled that it's been used properly like that.
And we graduated from high school together.
Oh, and what year?
1982.
1982. From where?
Lloyd.
Erlanger Lloyd, the only school?
Yeah.
I taught there my first year of teaching, 1970, and was president of the Education Association, elected by the school teachers as a first-year teacher. Can you believe that? But I went on to be superintendent of education for the whole state of Kentucky in 1992, the last elected one, and the first person elected to a statewide office from northern Kentucky in 70 years. That was quite an achievement. So it's,
Thank you. It was good seeing you here tonight.
well, I'm so thrilled to come here. My sister Barbara taught at Erlanger. I taught at
Barbara Brander.
Barbara Brander at A.J. Linneman. She was a wonderful sister.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
well, God bless you all, and take care. And I'll tell Miss June, my wife, the smartest move I ever made. I'll tell you said hello.
Okay.
Take care. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Travels with Dr. John Stephenson here at the Erlanger Elsmere Historical Society. And had a great evening, enjoyed myself getting all this history about a roller rink that I used to skate in. My little sisters and brothers and skated there, and my 2 to 3 daughters, Michelle, Holly Smith, and Holly skated there, and Holly Bennett and Pamela Bennett, which later became Pamela Smith and Holly Smith, and they both graduated from Erlanger Lloyd, and my daughter Michelle, Colleen Michelle, who graduated from Boone County, and my son Guy, who graduated from Connor, Guy Stephenson. He came out here to the roller rink also, and we all used it and had a ball there. So this is some great history you get to see here tonight. I'm thrilled to bring this to you on YouTube and Facebook. God bless you and have a great day. The annual pizza and history picnic. Come on out, have a ball. Now, I happen to have a fella here. I'm always talking about being 80. Can I tell how old you are?
You may.
He's 90 years old and and a great friend from years gone by. Now, tell me who you are. What's your name?
Paul Hahn.
Paul Hahn. And you've been here and been active in the city and in the county
I've been active here.
everywhere.
I was first on Erlanger Council in 1970.
1970. That was the year I taught school at Erlanger Lloyd, and used to come over to the city council meetings with Austin Mann, I think it was.
Austin Mann. He was mayor when I came in.
Yeah, well, I taught advanced government and American history, and I used to bring my students over there to see how the city operated. And you all helped them out and did a great job.
Yeah.
I was very proud of you.
Yeah.
Well, God bless you. All the work you're still doing here
A
with
lot
this
of years
historical.
over, a lot of water over the dam.
Isn't that truth? Well, the good Lord blessed me with going on and being the last elected superintendent of education for Kentucky, and being honored that way. And I just feel like that I just love the people of Erlanger and Elsmere. growing up here a big part of the time. All of my kids and children went to this roller rink, you know. In fact, I used to go to it myself. I had a great visit.
I didn't go to the roller rink, but I sold material to
Sold, that's right. Well, tickled to see you. You living here soon, right now still?
Oh, yeah. We got a place up in Erlanger Lakes.
Yeah.
I got rid of our house, and Pat and I just got a little place up there.
Oh, wonderful. Well, wonderful. Well, tickled to be here with you, and God bless you.
I'm glad to have you.
Tell everybody I said hello.
I will do it.
Okay.
I'll do it. Good seeing you.
Bye-bye now. Well, travels with Dr. John Stephenson here, the last elected superintendent of education for the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And I just wanted to do something a little special for the family here and the gentleman that's working so hard on the biography. And first of all, let me ask each of your names, ma'am.
Carlita Mullins Cooper.
Grace Mullins.
Joe Mullins.
Jeff Fields Mullins, I think at this point.
Maggie Mullins.
Bonnie Mullins. Come on over, Bonnie, and get in this. Come on over and get on this. Now, I wanted to do this because you are beautiful. And the song really says it all. But it goes like this. You are so beautiful to me. You are so beautiful to me. Can't you see? You're everything I hope for. You're everything I need. You are so beautiful to God. And that's the way Billy Preston sang it in his mother's little church. But Joe Cocker made it popular all over the world as a love song. But when I sing it, I like to sing it like Billy Preston sang it. And I really sing this from my heart to the family and to the gentleman that's working so hard to put history together. Because history is the light to our future and the pathway to our past. It's God's principles that we learn from our history. And you are bringing history that we all can learn from and appreciate. Thank you so much. God bless you. You can watch this on YouTube and Facebook now. All you got to do is look out there under Travels with Dr. John Stephenson on YouTube and Facebook. And on Facebook, it'll be there too. And you all be shining just as pretty as you are right now. Good Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. At 80 years old, takes me a little time to get around, but I'm getting around a little bit.
Getting around is the important part.
That's the important part.
Time is not the important part.
And breathing.
Getting around is the important part.
Somebody said to me the other day, said, John, you still got a voice. I said, well, the lungs are holding up thanks to Dr. Neil Mosier. You all take care now. Beautiful. Dell Street too. Garvey Avenue. Down there, I think there's a city building. there's the Elsmere Baptist Church. Dad went to church there for a while, out in Stephenson, when he lived with me at the 7 Mile House there in Erlanger. We'll take a little drive down by the 7 Mile House. Now right there's where they talk about where I lived at 120 Garvey Avenue. It's right here on the left, a little beige house there, and there was a balcony out there, but that's where June Bennett and I lived after we were married. And 120 still there, Garvey Avenue, still there. Bless their hearts. She's gone on to heaven now, but she had two beautiful daughters, Holly and Pamela, with me, and they are wonderful daughters. Wonderful daughters. Over on the right here you have St. Henry's Church. Used to be Sid's drugstore up there. She had a different, something else is there now, I think. But anyway, and we'll head back toward 275 and then head on home. But there's St. Henry's. That's where Barbara sang in the choir there for many years, and Jay both. 30 years, I guess, they sang in the choir there. Father Rushman and Father Nippy Canal was there for years. In fact, Nippy Canal, I think, spoke at their funeral. Wonderful man. Wonderful Christian man. Monsignor Hellman was a wonderful Christian man. Now down here's where they park at for the Ketchum home, and Don Ketchum Funeral Home here, 342-4040. That's where Danny will be laid out there. Danny Marks, who died from the Howdy Boys, Sparrow and Newton barber shop. He used to visit there regularly, every day practically that I can remember, and for 20 years. And after he retired, he worked at, I think, over at Western Southern Life Insurance and Computers. He's a very smart man, and he always made a practice of looking at all of the I'm going to get over here and, if you don't mind here, take a little picture here of this society. A society grows great when old men and women plant trees in whose shade they may never sit. And there's where my house was there. We donated this land here to the city of Erlanger. A 7 Mile garden, 7 Mile house, sit right there. And that's where I did all my volunteer work out of for years. And it was originally called the 7 Mile House. Before I bought it, it was the Right Way Cafe. Then it became, I named it the 7 Mile House Pipe and Tobacco Shop. And we did our organizing out of there for taking all kinds of food and things all across Kentucky to support the needy. When they had floods and things down in eastern Kentucky with the Bidings family and Father Rushman, who worked with all of the rural caucuses, and Monsignor Hellman, and the Baptist Association. All of them, we worked with them. In fact, I used to walk from Florence to Covington dressed as Santa Claus for the needy kids' Christmas party. Walked the entire distance and used to sing in Mike Wong's original walk house here in Edgewood. It was back here to the right somewhere where they had their first restaurant. And of course, I'm still a patron from them down there where they are on Buttermilk Pike, Mike Wong's. Time flies by in life. We see a lot of different things happen. New Kroger building's going in over here, and that'll certainly be interesting to see how that goes. The Kroger sits back up there now, and but there'll be a new new future home of Kroger right there. You see the sign, folks. Well, I'll let you go now. This is long enough for an evening program. I'll be up half the night putting it together. But God bless you. We had a great day. I absolutely love being there and filming, and all the folks there. I can't wait to call my little sister Judy, and my daughters Holly and Pamela and Michelle, and my son Guy. I already told him about it coming out here, and my wife Miss June. Bless her heart. Keep us in your prayers if you would. John and June Guyman Stephenson, 859-750-0000. Join us on Facebook and YouTube. And Facebook under John Stephenson or John A. Stephenson. We got 2 pages. And look under YouTube under Travels with Dr. John Stephenson. Former Superintendent of Education, Commonwealth of Kentucky. God bless you and have a great day. www.begottenson.com. www.godspeaks.com. www.jstevenson.com. An email address, small j, small s, 750-0000 @gmail.com. Boy, I got a lot of numbers in a lot of places, haven't I? Gee willikers. Well, I'm getting old, you know. I forget some things. We live now at 38 McCollum Road, Independence, Kentucky. Right back behind the old Independence Courthouse. Thanks to our wonderful friends at WIOK 107.5 FM on the radio dial. I'm going to turn them on right now. Yeah, I think I'm about to find them here.
Getting their sheep to follow. I read this in the shepherding book. As they were walking through the fields, they would take their staff and reach up to a high limb of a tree where there was a succulent piece of fruit. And they would take the fruit and quietly stroll on. And the sheep interested in getting the juicy tidbit would crowd close behind the shepherd and nibble at the fruit. And the sheep that stayed closest to the shepherd got the most fruit. In other words, the shepherd would lead the sheep by feeding the sheep. And the same is true for the good shepherd. If we want to be led by him, we have to stay close enough to him in our relationship that we can take from his hand every morsel of truth that he would give us.
Boy,
you have to stay close to
that's so true. WIOK 107.5 FM on the radio dial. Tri-State Gospel. Falmouth, Kentucky. 41040 zip code.
We need, and we can just look at that page and know what to do.
Post Office Box 50.
A sheet of paper with specific instructions.
Gil and Jan Hammond.
He just doesn't live in that way. Instead, he goes before us.
32 years.
Guides us on our journey.
WIOK. Christian Broadcasting.
Don't worry about the God.
That's David Jeremiah speaking now. Wonderful minister.
The shepherd. Stay close to him. Follow his lead. This is the surest way to find your way in life. I think the greatest lesson in knowing the will of God and knowing the leadership of the Lord is being able to say, God, I don't know what your will is, but I know one thing. Whatever it is, I'm willing to do it.
Amen.
You say, Pastor, that doesn't come easy. I remember years ago when my father was the pastor, the church was going through kind of a fad time on spiritual gifts. And we used to have gift seminars where everybody would come together to try to figure out what their spiritual gift was. You probably remember that. Supposedly there's 19 spiritual gifts listed in the Bible. Every Christian has at least one of them. And these seminars were to try to help you decide which one was yours. I wasn't into all that stuff. He was one of those old guys, you know. Just stick to the main stuff. One day I heard him say this, I never forgot it. He said, you know what, they never talk about the most important gift. He said, you know what that is, David? I said, no. And he said, it's the gift of availability. He said, God directs those people who are available. You want to know the will of God? Be available. You want to know the will of God? Take a sheet of paper, sign the bottom of it, and say, God, you fill in the top. I'll do whatever you tell me to do.
Well, that's a good idea.
The Good Shepherd leads us, but we have to follow. We have to realize that he's worthy of our following.
That's what I did
So
tonight.
the Good Shepherd loves
Follow.
his sheep,
And
the
what
Good
did I
Shepherd
find?
leads
A gold
his
mine of wonderful
But
people
thirdly,
and knowledge.
and this is more important. The Good
Knowledge of
Shepherd
history.
lays down
History,
his
the light
life
to our future,
for his sheep.
and the pathway to our past.
Think of
The greatest
real
book
sheep
ever
and a
written,
real shepherd,
the Bible.
as we would know it in today's world.
I say that as a government
And how
teacher,
many times
advanced
the shepherd
government
has to
teacher,
put between his
and a
sheep
history
and the bear,
teacher
his sheep
of United
and the
States history.
lion, or his sheep and the coyotes. He has to put his life on the line. The Bible says our good shepherd not only put his life on the line, he laid down his life for his sheep.
Amen.
Is there any more important statement in the Bible than that?
That's
the Lord
true.
Jesus came and laid down his life for us, put himself in the place.
WIOK, Falmouth, Cincinnati, 107.5, Tri-State Gospel.
570 Southern Kentucky Gospel, WIDS, Russell Springs, Jamestown.
And WIDS rebroadcasting on W240DB, Russell Springs, Kentucky, 95.9 FM.